Welcome to Tell Me Everything. If you guys like original music, talks on activism, finding your career, just inspiring artist things, like my page, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Today I'm so excited because we have someone very special. Today with me, we have Lindsey Donnell, and she is, do you say professional ballerina, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Professional ballerina with the Dance Theater of Harlem. And we're just really excited to have you. So we're just going to dive right in.
Here, thank you.
I just wanted, for everybody listening, I wanted to read something off. So I did some research on the Dance Theater of Harlem, and it's a really cool organization and everything. And I wanted to read this off. It's kind of like their mission statement for everybody who's listening. And it's basically the Dance Theater of Harlem tours nationally and internationally, and they present a powerful vision for ballet in the 21st century. The 18-member multi-ethnic company performs a forward-thinking repertoire that includes treasured classics, neoclassical works by George Balanchine and resident choreographer Robert Garland, as well as innovative contemporary works that use the language of ballet to celebrate African American culture. So I think before we dive into all the questions and all things what is it like being a part of the Dance Theater of Harlem specifically for you?
What is it like? I mean, it's been a really tremendous opportunity, and it's kind of it's changed the course of my life. I think one, just living in New York City, because I grew up in Midland, Texas, so
amazing,
very different lifestyle, than I feel like New York kind of has a more European lifestyle.
Yeah.
And as you know, since you've lived here too, it's so fast paced.
Yes.
Whereas the South is known for its slower pace. So, so one, I think, moving to New York and being around all the different cultures, having an appreciation for all the different cultures. And then with Dance Theater of Harlem specifically, we've gotten to tour United States, and I've gotten to go around the world. So that's just broadened my perspective of who I am, how I fit in the world, how the world interacts. So
that's so cool. I never, we've talked obviously before, and I never really thought about that too, because so many of the things, for me personally, that have got me to where I am now with my beliefs and my ideologies and all that is because of what I've been exposed to. So I never really even, that's so cool, because I'm sure that your worldview has been expanded with all these different places that you've seen, and even more so, I feel like in the name of your art, you got to go to these places specifically because you are a dancer and because of your art, and so you get to see things in that kind of scope, which is really, really cool. So yeah, but I guess my first question for you is, where did you grow up? What was little baby Lindsey like as a child?
Baby Lindsey was always dancing, apparently. So yeah, like I said, I grew up in Texas, and not near any of the big cities West Texas and Midland. So yeah, I grew up, and I guess I always loved dance. I kind of started more in a competition style setting, and then I discovered ballet through a PBS production of the Nutcracker.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Wow, that was amazing. We recorded it on VHS, and I would watch it all the time.
It's so funny because I have a really specific memory of the Nutcracker tied to my art too. When I was a little baby child, there was the Macomb Center of Performing Arts, which was over by where I grew up in Michigan, and they would do the Nutcracker Ballet every year at the Performing Arts Center. And as a kid, I always loved watching it, but I was in music, and so we got to play. When I was really young, I played the piano and I played the violin, and so we got to play as part of the orchestra for the ballet. And so that was kind of what got me into that world of performing and everything. So that's amazing. So watching that VHS and everything was really the spark of falling in love with dance and everything.
Yeah, I think I loved Clara, because I think the Nutcracker is so relatable for kids, because there are kids in the production.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I loved the acting side of Act One, and then in the second act there was so much dancing, and of course the Sugar Plum her tiara and tutu and just lovely pink sparkle. It was like,
Aw.
it was everything for me.
I love it. I love it. So when you were kind of like exposed to that and you were, you know, you watched that, you were falling in love with like art as a form and acting and dancing and everything. What about dance, like, where did that spark happen? Like, you're like, I want to do that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, apparently, like even before I can remember, my parents have said I've always wanted to be a dancer. So for me, it's kind of something like when I hear music, it's like that is my natural instinct is
Ah,
like, you move, you
your
groove.
body.
So yeah, like when I was a baby, I guess when I was crying or whatever, my dad would like actually have to get up and dance with me, and that's what would kind
Oh
of
my
calm.
gosh, that's so amazing. I love
Yeah,
that. That was it was almost that like that kind of just quickly became your like safety net, your coping mechanism in the most beautiful way. You know, you like from like a very early age, a soothing way to cope was to like move toward dance. And so that was kind of almost in your DNA.
yeah. And
That's
then I think I've always just been drawn to dance, like I love watching dance whenever I see it. And I remember when I was little, just, like watching older people at my studio dance, I was just like, that is so amazing.
yeah.
Um, and then I think as I got more into ballet, the whole technique of it, there's like a real graduation
Mhm.
of how you work in it. And so I was very drawn to that
Yeah.
kind of structure.
Okay.
Um, because you can push yourself. It's like it's a group thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, very individual.
Yeah.
Um, so I enjoy that aspect of it because
Yeah.
you're in it for you.
Well, and it makes me, it kind of brings me to my next question. I love to ask people this that are in like a performance career or driven towards something in the arts is there's always that moment when you're growing up, especially when you like by happenstance you started to realize like I have a knack for this. I like this. There's like some sort of electricity that happens when I'm surrounded by this. So you start to gravitate towards those things and see like, oh, I'm going to continue to put myself in a place near this thing because it's like drawing me in. And the more that I see it and the more that I like break it down and understand it, the more that I want. And so my question would be like, when did you are now like, I'm going to pat you on the back a little bit. You are now like a professional ballerina in New York City. When did you realize that like this is what I should be doing? Like when did you for like for someone like me, like as a singer and an actor, I'll always ask fellow singers or like, when did you realize you could sing a little better than most? When did you realize like you could dance better than, you know, most of the people around you?
I don't know, actually. I guess that's not really a hurdle kind of that I remember having.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was always kind of intimidated by the dance profession because, like, especially in Texas, I think the arts are. I mean, sports and those kind of things are a little bit more celebrated. So I felt like a lot of times growing up, it was like, I mean, yeah, you like to dance, but like, what do you want to do? Or then like, how
Oh
do you want
yes.
to that
Yeah.
kind
So
of.
people almost, do you feel like people almost looked at it like, I feel like a lot of people do is like it's kind of a hobby. It's not really something that you do as a career.
Yeah, I think it was definitely looked at it in that way. And then even if you do want to have a career, I think the dance world is very competitive. And so then I think I always had a little bit of like, okay, can I make it? Do I have enough? But I loved it enough that I was like, well, I'm gonna keep trying,
Yeah.
uh, I'll go all the way until like the world tells me no.
Oh, wait, I love that. I love that concept. I love that because like the whole reason why I do this interview series and why I love to talk to people like you who are professional artists is, you know, for people to understand like how does that work? Because I think a lot of people see someone like you, a beautiful ballet dancer, and it's like, oh, you know, like you have to have like this thing in place. You had, like, just like how I asked you, like, was there any point where you realized you were better than most? But what you said was so beautiful, is like, I loved it so much that I was going to keep trying until the world told me no. That's so powerful. So like, you loved it so much, and the love for it kind of like guided you to where you are now. That gave me chills when
Yeah.
you said that, that you loved it so much that you decided that you were going to keep trying no matter what, until the world did something or said something or showed you something that you couldn't do, and you never got there because you
Yeah. So I feel incredibly grateful to,
yeah,
have the I
yeah,
have
that's
had
so
and am.
cool. Wait, say that again.
I said, yeah, so I guess I continually feel like grateful and surprised for the career that I have had and continuing to have. So like I'm
Yeah,
still going. So what's
yeah,
you
no,
know?
I love that. So I guess like my next question would be, so you said that so beautifully, and that it just like is so perfect into the next section that I wanted to like touch base on, was the journey from realizing what you said so beautifully of like, I loved it so much that I was just going to keep trying until the world told me no, until like something didn't work out. And then you were like, okay, well, no, I'm doing everything right, because eventually you got to this place. What was that journey like? Like, when did you, in that beautiful statement saying like, I'm going to keep trying and keep doing it until it doesn't work out, like, how did you come up with a plan? Who did you talk to? Like, what was your process like for like, where do I go next? Like, do I go to school? Do I like keep taking classes? Do I move to New York? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I guess in high school that's when I really started to debate because I think especially in the ballet profession, it's a lot more common for dancers to go straight into a career
Mm-hmm.
rather than go the college route. But my parents were both always very, very into education. I think, yeah, because my mom very much stresses like, education, education, education. My dad was the first person of his siblings, I think, to complete college. So I
Wow.
just felt from a young, like before, you know, I think when I was in kindergarten, they were like, you grow up and then you go to college. It's like one and then two.
For sure.
So yeah, so then at that time, and then combined, I got an injury like beginning of my senior year. So that was kind of like a thing that I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm not invincible,
Yeah. And that was
uh,
senior year of high school?
of high school. Yeah.
Wow. So what, like, how did it happen? What was that like?
So we were in rehearsals. We had like these big summer sessions like right before the school year started, where we would have ballets choreographed or taught to us. And so this one had a lot of jumping, and I don't know, like I think I took a lot of Advil and so like I kind of ignored my body and was like try not like push through
Yeah.
mindset. And I remember I went over to my friend's house that night, and we were like gonna watch a movie there. And I was like, my ankle really hurts from rehearsal, and I just was like, I wrapped it in like a ice thing, and we watched the movie, and we took it off at the end of the movie, and it was like my ankle was the size of my neck, and I was like,
Oh my God.
oh. So then I was like, wow, okay.
Like, we got some issues here.
We have some issues. So yeah, it ended up having a partial tear in my Achilles. Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, which I mean, I guess the doctor, he was like, it's just like some fibers kind of tore, but like your main one's still there. But
Okay.
um, so yeah, I had to take like a few months off and then do some like physical therapy in the pool and like jump that way and kind
Hmm.
of like build my way back up.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, so then at that time I was like, okay, I think I like going to school is a great idea. One, I think the whole college experience I was very attracted to.
Hmm.
As I said, with my parents' influence, and then the school I went to Butler University, and you could do like arts administration with dance.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, that seems like it gets all of my things in one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And like I'm sure that felt too like you were still focusing in on that passion and that dream of yours to be a dancer, but then still having like this like forward track of like I'm going to go to school, I'm going to better myself that way too. Did you ever feel like as you were moving towards that goal and like you said with the influence of your parents like really lovingly telling you like school is important and um it's a good thing to have, just in general. Did you ever feel like you were like kind of torn between anything, or you just like it just felt really good to do that because you got your art side and you got the school side?
Yeah, I was a little torn, especially because, like I said, in the dance world and in the ballet world, your career is relatively short, because they say like most dancers, especially women, you retire like maximum by the time you're 40, most of
Yeah,
the time. A few like outliers like Sylvie Gillett and stuff like that,
yeah,
but yeah, a lot of times, it's in your 30s. So it's like, is this a valuable 4 years? And like, will I still be able to reach those goals after college? So it was a toss up. But then I was like, okay, I'll go for 1 year at least, see if I like it, and then I can always reevaluate.
very
Um,
cool.
and so yeah, then I ended up staying the whole 3 years.
I love it. And then tell me, because I'm so fascinated. So walk me through. So you're in college and you're still very much in love with this art form. You're very good at this art form. What kind of like, what was the next step after that? Like from college to, did you go right into, well, I guess two questions. What, like, where did you go from being in college to being like, this is I can do this. Like this, I can be a professional ballerina and make a living as a ballerina. And then, how did you find dance theater?
So after school, I went to well, because I guess I should say in the ballet world, there's like a hierarchy usually that
Okay.
you climb. It usually goes like trainee, apprentice, corps member, soloist, and then principal.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so most of the time, like you pretty much you always start at the bottom, like no matter if you have college experience or no.
Okay.
So yeah, after school, I was like, okay, well, like let me evaluate some trainee programs, and I ended up going to Nashville Ballet, and so they had a really great program because we did a lot of outreach work,
Oh,
so we
very
got
cool.
time in the schools, but then we were also in the company productions, so we were kind of like standing corps members or that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, like step one, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I stayed there 2 years, and then that was like the maximum of the program.
Okay.
And so then that was a big moment where I was like, okay, what, like now it's the real, it's, like, am I going to be able to make it? Because usually, trainee programs, they're a little bit larger, but
Yeah.
sometimes only like 1 or 2 spots in a company open, if
Hmm.
any. So it
Yeah.
gets like that next level of like,
It's
should
like,
like,
yeah,
oh my
like it's
God.
slowly like, okay, there's more people, and then there's like less people that are like more serious about it, and then a smaller group of people, and then it's like, okay, these people are the ones that. Did you feel like in that process, did you get to a place where that's when you started to realize like the people on your left and right were like they were all kind of like interested like you were, but you just kind of like found yourself continuing to move on and move on and move
Yeah, well, at that time, because I knew like just like with my high, like because a lot of times also in companies it's really depends, it's like how you fit into the whole company, to their overview. And at the end of my time at Nashville, I was a little bit taller than a lot of the dancers, so like I had a really great time and a really great relationship there, but they were like, we don't see you like here for the long-term future. So
That's
Um,
crazy. I never knew that when it came to ballet. So whoa, whoa, whoa. So like when you're in a company, this is so fascinating to me. So in a company for ballet, they're basically what you're saying is they're looking at everybody in the company is like kind of like trying to be cohesive, looking together. like like all obviously like skill and talent and all those things go into play, but that's because that's really similar to how I feel like auditions are, is where like you walk in and they want you can be the most amazing actor, but they want to make sure that you fit in with like how the tone of the piece, how it like is, and like the other actors, do you get along, do you fit the same kind of like style and everything like that. So that's basically what you're saying is like with everybody in a company, they want everybody to kind of like fit together well.
yeah, definitely. Fit together well. And then like, especially for a core, you know, you have like, if you had a ballet and you had 4 people on each side, you'd have like 2 tall girls, 2 medium tall girls, 2 medium girls, and then like 2 short girls to like
I
kind
had
of,
no idea. That's crazy. So what? Like that's nuts. So like and those are things I'm sure that you learn growing up and learning about ballet. Like, so did you know? That's so fascinating to me. I had no idea that that was like a thing where they. I mean, it makes total sense, but like
uh,
that there's like these like pieces in there. Did you feel like you knew from an early like stage in that process that you were probably going, if you were going to be in that one or another company at some point, that you were going to be like that certain piece in the puzzle?
yeah, I mean, I think probably in high school when because I'm almost 5'9" and definitely like, you know, I have a big bun. So like definitely 9, I look maybe even, they say on stage I look like 6 feet tall, like super
Oh,
long. So I did know, I think, you know, at a certain time that like, especially because I feel like when you're on either end of the spectrum, you know
mm-hmm.
what I mean, then it can be harder in that middle stage to like fit in.
Gotcha.
uh, once you get to that soloist principal thing, then it doesn't matter, you don't have to like fit in.
Right.
And it's sometimes the like partnering wise, because that's the other factor with ballet is like when the woman is on point, ideally the man she's dancing with is the same height, just for like arms and that kind of thing, same height or taller, because otherwise
So fascinating.
yeah, one like visually, and two, it just like it'll work better, your proportions.
Yeah, yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Did you ever go like before you got to that company in Nashville? Were you ever partnered with somebody that was shorter than you, or was that ever
Yes, I partnered with many guys shorter than me.
that's
Um,
so funny.
I now there's 2 men that I dance with now at DTH, and I think they're both 6'4". And I have never had 2 tall partners. Like, it's amazing. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, and that's crazy too because like them being 6'4" just in general, because like you said, when you're on point or like with your arms raised or anything like that, that's going to make a big difference. Because I've always felt like somewhat of like a pretty big dude, and I'm 6'2", so I can only imagine like that would make so much sense because 6'4" seems like such like a tall person, but when you
yeah,
consider that your hands are raised, you're on point, like the height matching and everything, and then for them to be able to like like you said, balance and like lifts and like all that stuff, like that's so crazy. I never even thought about that. That's
yeah.
nuts. So you were real, they were telling you that you didn't fit uh in with the rest of the company, but did you feel like that was like no problem because you're like, oh, there's all these other companies I can go for, I've had all this experience? Were you worried? What was that like?
I think that was my most worried time of my career is that jump. Because then, yeah, because there's so many going from a trainee to like the next spot. There's so fewer positions usually. You know what I mean? And so that was when I decided, um, because at Dance Theater Harlem, the company I'm with now, they had been on hiatus. The company in, I think, 2008, yeah, went on hiatus because of financial issues. And so then I had heard that the director that I have now, Virginia Johnson, that she was going to resurrect the company. So I was like, interesting. Okay, like that seems like a really good avenue for me, and it also means that there's probably a lot of new opportunity, new open spots.
Yeah.
I'd done an internship in New York when I was in college, and I was like, oh, the city is everything I thought it would be and more. I
Yeah.
love it.
You fell in love with the city much like I did, where it was like you get. I think for me, and I would love to get your take on this. For me, I think the first time when I moved to New York, you like you said with your art and with everything. I think sometimes we doubt ourselves so much, and New York especially seems like such a big pill to swallow. Like it's so monumental. It's like the busiest city in the world. Um, it's like the epicenter of art, and like all the best of the best of the best go there. So when you did your internship and you were like spending time there and doing your art there, did it feel like everything kind of fell in place as far as like for your like self-confidence of like I'm doing my art got me to the city, I'm in this internship, and I feel like I can be here. I don't feel like the city overwhelms me. Did you kind of feel like it all kind of fell into place?
Yes. Well, but it's interesting because my internship was for arts administration.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up working at a dance company in New York, and so I was like kind of around dance, and I could take classes,
Mhm.
um, all like as a benefit of also being there. However, I was like I wasn't dancing, but that made me realize that I didn't want to be on the office side, that I was like, okay, like I now know that like I have the skills and I've studied it. I think it's like invaluable to kind of understand all pieces of an organization, but um, that college internship was, I was like, okay, I do really want to go for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that kind of gave you the confidence to be like, no, for sure, I want to be on the performing side of this. I want to risk everything. Like, I want to work really hard and like, I want to make it happen.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really, really cool.
Like I think ever since I was little, I was like, ooh, having an office and a desk sounds so cool. But then when I actually had to be at one every day, I was like,
Nope.
not as
Yep.
glamorous as I
Yep.
thought.
No, I'm right there with you because like, I think especially like I'm reading this, I've read the same book like 4 or 5 times. It's my favorite. It's called The Artist's Way. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so that was like exactly where I got to was like I did art like very much like you, where I was like I was doing things, I was doing like side gigs and side projects, and I would do community theater, or I would even do like side professional gigs, but all like that fit into my 9 to 5 job until I finally realized like I hate like the desk, the 9 to 5 thing, and I need to like put more energies and effort into like at least trying to figure out how I could make that happen. And it sounds like when you were in that internship you realized, no, for sure, I do not want to be at a desk, I don't want to do administration, I want to be dancing, and I'm going to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So then walk me through, so you did the internship in New York, you had left the company in Nashville, and you had heard about them reviving the company and the Dance Theater of Harlem. Where were you at this place? Were you thinking about New York, or were you just kind of like looking for any place that would hire
I was in the anywhere that would hire me.
you?
So yeah, I had like two other opportunities that I was kind of trying to weigh out which one would be best. And yeah, I was a little intimidated by the New York dance scene just because I was like I kind of had the idea of I thought maybe it would be better to like be a big fish in a small pond rather than a small fish in a big pond.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then like I said, everything kind of lined up with Dance Theater of Harlem reopening, and I was like, okay, well, I'll go and like I'll see how it works. Because there was a year, it was a year in between leaving Nashville and before the company revived. That
So where were you like in that year? Did you stay in Nashville? Did you go home? Did you go to New York? Where were you in that year?
Yeah, I moved to New York, and then I ended up doing like it was like a professional training program, the PTP at DTH, which I felt like was it could because it was like either a lateral move, maybe even like a backward step, just because I wasn't being paid as much. I wasn't getting point shoes anymore. So that year was like really stressful. I was
Yeah.
working as a tutor in the evening. I would go out to Long Island and dance teach at night on the opposite days and on Saturdays. And then I was doing the DTH professional training program during the days, just to, because like the DTH school remained open even when the company was on hiatus. So
Oh, very cool.
I was like, okay, like I'll let them get to know me. And then also, there's so many dance auditions in New York. So if if that doesn't work out, I'll be right there in order to take advantage of the next opportunity. So
Love it. I have to ask you because when I moved to New York, I had in my first place, which was really cheap, I shared a bedroom with one person. So it was like pretty cheap rent. It was like $400, but I was like sharing like one bedroom in a 4-bedroom apartment with somebody. And then I moved into another apartment in Brooklyn and I had my own bedroom, but I still had 3 roommates. How many roommates did you have when you first moved to New York?
yeah, when I first moved, well, we had a really tiny studio. I moved my I was in a relationship at the time, so then we ended up getting this tiny, it was like a dorm room size studio, uh, and
Know
moving in together.
exactly what you're talking about. Like super tiny, like enough room for your bed. Sometimes you'll have like those stand-up beds where you can like tuck them up so you have more space. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one time my cousin was coming to New York and she was like, "Hey, could we like her and I think her husband, like, could we stay with you guys?" And I was like, "No, I'm so sorry." Like, no, we don't mind. I was like, we just don't really have the space. And they were like, we don't mind sleeping on the floor. Like, it would just like save us a bunch of money. And I'm like, no, really, like, there's like, even
There's
if
no
you want
floor.
like this on the floor. Yeah. Like, it's like, you don't understand.
You're like, there's barely enough room for us. There will be no room for you.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. So then, I'm so fascinated by your time, like like that year in between getting to like be the ballerina at DTH. What was the? Did you have an audition process? Because for me, understanding like the audition process for me would be like for a film or a commercial or a play. You're given sides, you work on them, and then you go into the audition room or however. Now I'm doing a lot of stuff on camera, so I'm just like auditioning, on my laptop. But what was that like? Did you have to audition for them because you were doing the program with them already? Did they kind of already get to know you? I just love a good audition story.
Yes, I did have to go through the audition, and the DTH audition is the longest ballet audition I have ever done in my life. It was it was over 6 hours. Um,
6 hours?
yeah,
Oh my
and yeah, so
gosh.
I don't remember. There were a lot of people there. I don't remember how many now exactly, but at least like 150 that time. And so yeah, first we did a ballet class. I think we divided into two groups first, and so like each group did a ballet bar, and then they made cuts. And then I think that they had one group after that, and then we did a ballet center, and then they made cuts. And
So
then we had
was it like I'm obsessed with the movie Center Stage. Was it like that where they just continued, right? Where did they just continue to send people home like no questions asked, just like thank you, next kind of like situation?
yeah, that's kind of the name of the game in the ballet world. There are a few companies that if you do make it, most of the time if you make it to the end, then they'll talk to you. But if you're cut during the audition process, it's like thank you for your time, goodbye. you know.
That's crazy. So okay, so started with 150 people. You were one of the 150 people, just like hoping for the best, and people just kept getting sent home. And did you ever feel like in that process, as people were continuing to be sent home, you're like, oh, I'm really good. I got this. Or did you just like stay like, don't get your hopes up?
I was like, don't get your hopes up.
Okay. That sounds about
And
right.
there were, I mean, I think in any audition setting, there's always so much talent in the room. And again, it's not always about your talent. Sometimes it's about how you fit, who they're looking for.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, like come on. But yeah, so then we learned a classical variation, um, and performed that individually, I think. And then we learned a contemporary section of a piece, and had to perform that. And then, let's see, was there anything else? I can't remember. Then I thought I was cut, and they were going to do one more partnering section. And so like I was sitting down taking off my point shoes, and then they were like, oh wait, sorry, Lindsey, like we need you. And I was like, so I'm still to this day, I'm not sure if they like had accidentally kept an extra boy and just needed me because I like had sat there to take off my point shoes rather than going downstairs. But I remember like really trying to turn it out in the partnering section.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. So at the partnering section, how many people, or do you even remember like how many people was it down to at that point?
I think it was something like it was like 8 to 10 women and 8 to 10 men,
Okay.
less than like 20, less than 20 total.
Okay.
So
And
yeah.
then after the partnering section, what happened?
Then they said, thank you. You'll hear from us in a few weeks.
Oh my gosh. Were you literally on well, first of all, how long did it take for them to like call you back?
Well, so then because I was there in the school, like I got an actual date. And so I don't remember I don't remember what day it was, but that day I waited by the phone all day.
You're like, please call me,
um,
please call me, please call me.
yeah, because I think by this time too, this was like one of the last auditions, and like other things hadn't really been like opening as much. So I felt like this was my last hope,
Yeah, oh yeah.
where I was like, okay, well, and then like I was telling you, I was doing all of those other side jobs. I was really hustling, and I was just really tired. Where I was like, I don't like if I don't get something this year, then I think I'm gonna, go my arts admin
Okay.
route. And so yeah, I waited by the phone all day, and then a phone call never came. And so then I was like, no. And then I was too afraid to like call them and ask them, because I think it was like through a weekend. And so then on the Monday, I came in and it was like, hi, I was wondering, like, did you forget? And then I was told, oh, okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll tell you like this weekend or like this Friday. And so I was like,
Oh, so it was like they were taking longer to like evaluate everything.
yeah. And especially when you're on the waiting side, like you have all these reasons why, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God. But then yeah, I got the call and I got the offer. And I was like,
I know. So that was my next question. So like you're in freaking New York City, and you are like you have just been waiting, and you're doing all these other things. You're hustling. You're trying to survive out there, and then you get this phone call. Now, the phone call were they saying like, "Congratulations, you are now a prima ballerina with the company," or are they just like they're basically saying like, "You're part of the company. Here's your contract." How does that work?
yeah, they said that like I'd be part of the company. I think at that time they said that like it's going to be an 18-member company, um, that it was going to be non-ranked, and they had like an outline of some of the rep that we were going to do that season, and basically said that like the contract would be coming soon. And yeah, so it was kind of like, I think that year also that the company started doing a 2-week residency in Martha's Vineyard at these beautiful studios. Yeah, it was kind of, so I was like, I just made it, and now we're going to Martha's Vineyard.
You're like, hold the phone. I just care about Martha's Vineyard.
This is the life.
That's amazing. Okay, so that is just incredible. Like, did you feel like when you got to that moment, they offered you the contract, you're sitting in that moment, it's in New York City. I'm sure a million thoughts were going through your head, but were one of them like, did you ever stop to think like, I got here, like I did this, like what did that feel like? Like I am a professional ballerina in New York City and I got here.
Yeah, I mean, in that moment, like, cause there was like basically the summer waiting period. So like those few months, I think after I got the call, like the first thing I was like, I cannot wait to tell my mom.
Yeah.
Just, my parents had to be so supportive throughout the process. And, I think really, I feel so grateful that they were like, okay, if this is your dream, like we want you to get there. So yeah, I think in those few months, and like I remember just like going out to lunch. I want to say it was maybe my sister graduated that year or something, but I remember meeting my mom in North Carolina where my sister went to school, and we went out to lunch, and like I hadn't told her on the phone or anything, and I like sat her down and I was like, so I got a job as a professional dancer.
How good does that feel? Oh gosh, that's amazing. Like, hey, BT Dubs mom, I am a professional ballerina, so we're good. You don't have to worry about me anymore.
Yeah. She was like, what? Oh my gosh.
That's amazing. That is, what a great story. Do you ever find yourself, because I'm sure that being a ballerina and being in it, because now how many years has it been since you've been part of the company?
So I guess the company started in 2012. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So do you, with all that time and with everything, all of the hard work that you do, all of these things that you dedicate to your art, do you ever feel like, someone like me who's hearing this story and like is so enamored by you, like you are a professional ballerina, you're living in New York City, you're beautiful, you're doing this thing, and you're living this dream. Do you ever, in the craziness and the hustle and bustle of it, forget like, oh yeah, like I'm doing this? Because I'm sure it must feel like work sometimes, or a lot of times, I don't know.
Yes, it does. I mean, I think I kind of, you have those ups and downs that I've realized now that it's like, it's kind of steady.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think now during quarantine, I have been able to like pause, because I think that's the thing with New York, is just you're so busy that sometimes it is just like taking the time to stop and appreciate, like what you've done, where you've come from, the things that you have. And so, yeah, I feel like during this time, I'm like, hey, wow, like,
that's crazy.
Great. And yeah, it is. I mean, despite the long hours, and like, I think just like, but dance, when it feels like work, it's when you have the body aches and like,
yeah,
all that, you're just tired, and you're like, okay, I do love this, but like, I have to,
like, but then I'm sure that you get on stage and it all like 100% like goes away, because you're just like living your best life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. Well, you brought up quarantine, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions about that. So because nobody knows this, all the listeners, that I met Lindsey when I was working in Detroit, and they were traveling there. You were set to do a performance at with the Detroit Opera House.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had talked to you guys. I found out you and Alicia, who's another dancer, which I'm also going to be interviewing coming up. You guys were set to perform, and I just struck up a conversation with you guys. You were so amazing. That was probably a couple days before Michigan, I know, got like shut down. So what was that process like? You guys were in Detroit, you're like getting ready to do a performance there at Detroit Opera House, and then like what happened?
Yeah. So we were in Detroit, and I like DTH has a long-standing relationship with Detroit. We like often host a summer program there. We usually come to Detroit every 3 years, so it's like it's one of those venues that it's like, all right, like we love it here, you know. And so for that reason, it was like we were so excited to be back in the city, and you know we'd heard about COVID-19 a little bit, but it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's going on in China. Like I guess a few cases on the West Coast. So I think we were in Detroit a whole week. But like flying there, it was like, oh yeah, like that's not gonna affect like us. Like
Yeah, like not a big deal. Yeah,
yeah. And I remember telling someone actually like before we left, because he was like, are you worried? And I was like, oh no, like
yeah.
I'm not worried at all.
It's chill.
And so then yeah, we had our first show like midweek in Detroit with we do school performances every time. And so we've been gearing up for that. We had rehearsal, we did our first show, and by the end of the show, because like that morning they had told us like there are some cases in Michigan, it looks like some things might close, like don't worry though, we're gonna finish this engagement and then we'll go home and you know like we'll see what needs to happen. And so yeah, in those 2 hours literally, I guess it was the governor or the mayor, they were like, actually everything's closing down for the weekend. The rest of your engagement is canceled. They told us, they're like, okay, dancers, we're probably gonna like fly you out tomorrow morning because it's like it's looking like it's not even safe to be away from home anymore. It's not gonna be safe to travel. We don't want you to get stuck here. So we were like, okay. And
so
it was
like
kind
literally middle of the performance run, they straight up were like, we're sending you guys home.
yeah, that went from we're sending you home tomorrow to we went back to the hotel. It had been like a few of us had gotten lunch. We were like, okay, I guess we'll just we'll chill.
Yeah.
It was like we're moving it up to tonight. We have to get you out immediately. Please start packing. Please be in the lobby in like 10 minutes. It was like really chaotic actually, because it was like whoa, which I kind of feel like that's how the whole pandemic has been, where it's like it's fine, and then it's like it's not fine, everyone go inside.
No, I totally agree, because I mean like because I told everyone like that's how I met you guys, was at the hotel, and you guys said that you were doing the performance downtown and I was working at the hotel. I mean like so it's like crazy busy there, and we were all kind of like it's not a big deal. I mean there's a couple like cases that are coming out in the United States, but like not a big thing. And then literally like 3 days later, the whole state getting shut down. So yeah, that's nuts. So now you guys get sent home. You fly home to New York, and when you get back to New York, has things become as crazy as I think they are? As like, because I know New York was one of the first places that became, and I think it pretty much stayed the epicenter of the virus because it's so, obviously so congested there, so busy and everything. What was it like coming back to New York in the middle of all
that? So yeah, the airport, like already just the tension in the air kind of when we flew back, was like, okay. But I think even when we got back, like New York wasn't shut down quite yet. Mm-hmm. And it was, there weren't like the strict orders of staying inside. So it was still kind of like, I remember like, it was like, oh yeah, we'll probably have to go in quarantine for 2 weeks. That was kind of the gist of it. Mm-hmm. So I remember that weekend being like, well, I feel like if I'm going to have to be inside for 2 weeks, I should get one last brunch, like that was my mentality.
You're like, live your best life.
I know. And now I'm like, for 2 weeks,
yeah,
like 2.5 months later.
No, well, yeah, because it's. I think here they're starting to slowly open things up. What does it look like in New York right
Right now, I think everyone is definitely it's supposed to like not really like no gatherings at least until June 6th, and then I think there's a graduated plan for having being like essential workers start back, and like there's phases for businesses.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so right now, I think for the arts, we're looking at like because we can't even be in the studio or anything until I think that's projected to mid-July.
Wow.
Um, which yeah has been very different, like just for our day-to-day, because we're still like practicing and rehearsing, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
but we're doing it all from our living room. We had
Oh,
a workshop today in our living room. Yeah, you know.
that's
um,
crazy. That's
so
nuts. So I guess like really quick, I have so many more questions I want to ask you, but I don't want to like take up all your time. What is, I know we like kind of bounce around everywhere, but what is like a typical day in the life of a ballerina?
well, for us, I feel like I have two typical days, because one is a typical rehearsal day and the other is like a typical day when we're out on tour.
Oh,
uh,
okay.
just because it's a different vibe. So a rehearsal day, we usually will start like 9 a.m. and we'll do a ballet class. Bar center, it's just working to fine tune those muscles. People are always like, wait, but you're pro now, so you don't have to like do class. Like, no, you do class every day.
That's great. So do you do, so every day, like do you do, like do you have a day off or do you do like 7 days a week?
Yeah, we usually have one or 2 days off.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that you also need a day of rest for your body to recover, recuperate, regain your strength, you know.
Yeah.
um so yeah, we'll do an hour and a half ballet class, then we'll have a little break, and then we'll have a 3-hour rehearsal block, another break for lunch, and then another 3-hour rehearsal block. So it's usually like 9 to 6, or you know, or
Something.
10 to 7, something like that.
So essentially a full-time job. Like you're doing like, you're doing a full day's work of like stretches, working out, rehearsals, all those things, and then so now you said that's kind of like a rehearsal day. Walk us through like a day, like you said, on tour or when you have performances.
So then on a tour day, we'll get to the theater a little bit later. We'll have class around 11. And we'll usually do that on stage just to kind of get used to, because like one thing, like the stage lights and all of that, it like for turning and jumping, it like very much adjusts your equilibrium. So like the sooner we can get on the stage, the better, especially as a touring company, because it's not like a home theater.
Right.
Just like getting adjusted at like how many wings do you have, like the depth of the stage, the width of the stage, they're all like slightly different.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, but still class on stage.
Okay.
And then we do a run through of the program, and then we stop after each ballet for notes. And so that's both for us as the dancers, and the crew, because even though we travel with like a stage manager and a lighting director and but like everyone who like changes the light gels and like all the crew in the theater usually like comes with the theater, so we have to make sure all of that is smooth and ready to go. So yeah, we'll usually do that 1 to 4, and then we'll have dinner in the theater at 4, or like lunch. I think of it. And then we have about like another hour and a half. Like for an 8 o'clock show, we warm back up, so we'll have like a little mini condensed bar, like a half-hour warm up, an hour before curtain. So yeah, after the lunch dinner, you have maybe an hour and a half, and then you start doing your hair and makeup. Then you do stage warm up. Then you have half an hour, and then curtain is usually at 8. And so then you do the show. So you're usually like our day, we'll get to the theater at 10 a.m. and then shows 8 to 10:30. Like you leave the theater at 11 p.m.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
it's like, yeah, it could be some very long days.
Do you, so like, I know like when I've done stage shows, we'll go on and we'll rehearse and like everything like that, but like day of the show or like tech week, which is like the week that we open the show, we'll spend like the time like adjusting lights and doing all those things. But the most that you ever have to do as far as like if it's like a musical, obviously you're going to go through like cues and music and everything. And if it's a straight play, meaning like no music, we'll just do like a cue to cue where you like go to each place on the stage to make sure that the lights hit the right spot and all that stuff. Do you guys, when you were saying that you like do the classes on the stage and get used to all the lighting and the sound and everything, do you have like, I can't imagine being dancers like doing the cue to cue, or do you just have to run the whole thing with the sound and lights to see how everything lands and everything? How does that work?
Yeah, they'll do a cue to cue before we get there. And then we do have to do the whole thing with the sound. Just especially for us as a touring company, so much of, we don't have like a lot of sets. So like
Mm,
our lighting and the timing of the lighting with the music is really, really important. So yeah, we like always do a full run of the show.
gotcha. So when you guys tour, do you guys ever, are you always doing different places every night, or do you ever do like multiple runs at the same venue, or is it usually just kind of different everywhere?
Yeah, it really depends on the size of the city, um, how like, arts oriented kind of the city is. Most of the time though, we spend at least a few days in the city because we have a lot of other engagement things that we do. Like we'll go to school. Sometimes we have like these dancing in the street type events. Sometimes we'll bring kids into the theater and we have a lecture demonstration program for them. Um, we teach classes because that's like part of our mission statement is, dance is for everyone, ballet is for everyone. So we like to go out, and reach out when we're in these communities. So generally we will spend like, 3 or 4 days in a city, even if it's like we arrive 2 days there and then leave the fourth day. Um, and then the maximum we'll spend usually like a week in a city. So
Oh, cool. I like that.
yeah.
Well, I'm winding down for this. I wish I could keep you all day. I'm going to kind of wrap my last few things into one big question. So one thing that I have found in my life the last couple of years that has helped me just in kind of self-reflection and growth and just kind of being whole is meditation and yoga. I really love it. I really think it's important, both for your mind and your body, and just to stay grounded with how you feel and checking in on yourself and everything like that. And because of that, I always like to ask people, in a yoga class, you do everything, and then at the end you have this time for a few minutes where you're just lying there and you're meditating and your body is resting and relaxing after all the hard work. So I have found that because I love that, I always like to ask people about love and light, because that time when my body is resting after all the hard work I've done in a yoga class, I have time to meditate, and I oftentimes think about love and light. Like, what love and light am I going to have today? Like the people in my life, or like, with the outcome of my day, all these things. So what do you find in your art, in your life and everything? What do you see as your love and light, like day to day?
Yes, love and light. I love love and light. Um, I mean, I think the love is what I put into my art, and light is what I hope shines from the love that I put in.
I love that.
Um,
Say that
and
again.
then,
I love that. I love that. Say that one more time.
so yeah, I guess I look at it as love is what I put into my art and light is what I hope shines from that. So
I love that. That's so beautiful. Um, Especially, I feel like, gosh, ballet is so beautiful to me anyway. And I know we've talked about this before, is like when I've gone and seen different ballets, it looks almost, it looks very spiritual and very like almost like not of this planet sometimes, because it's like the way that ballerinas move their bodies, and the expression and the music and everything all culminating together is such like a, it's a very spiritual kind of like experience if you've ever gone to one. So that I feel like explains so much, because it's like for the people in the audience seeing your art, this light is like shining on them, and they're being, you know, impacted by it, they're being influenced by it, and the love is what you're putting into that, and you're hoping that that comes out to everybody else. Do you find that, because that's such a beautiful philosophy, do you find that it is kind of really, you've really honed in on that, especially during the pandemic, during this quarantine time?
Honed in on love and light,
Yeah.
or yeah, you know, I think I've been really during the quarantine time trying to, because I you have so much time, you know, to kind of to see what you prioritize, to see what you really love, because I think so much like we get into these routines, these schedules, these things that we have to do, the obligation. So it's been really refreshing to me to be able to kind of to be like, okay, I want to prioritize this, or you know, like this brings me joy, and like I love this. I think during the quarantine time, I've kind of been like looking, trying to find light to inspire my love, because I don't feel like I can be on the stage and sharing and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's been really fun to like to look outside for those sources of light and see the truth that continues to like draw me to it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's really cool. I think that makes perfect sense too, because I think a lot of people, myself included, have realized that this time is about that, is like finding more things that inspire you. Because like you said, especially for someone who's living in New York City, that you do get so used to the grind. You get so used to the hustle of city life and day to day, that it's like this has been a time that you can search out those things. What things inspire you, what things you love, and all that. So it's really cool. So I guess the only other thing I'm going to ask you before I let you go is, you know, part of my purpose with this talk series is to get people to hear someone's journey, how they, you know, started from the love of something or the curiosity of something and got to a place where they were living it, it was their career, or whatever facet it kind of fell into their lives. What would you tell somebody listening to the talk? What would be your advice, or if someone is curious on something, or wanting to seek something out, or even wanting to try something, or wanting to make something happen, what would be your advice to them, as someone who is kind of on the other side? As you know, you have manifested your dreams, you're now living in New York City, you're a professional ballerina. What advice, what kind of words of wisdom, anything that you wanted to tell people that were listening?
I guess I would say, you know, like don't focus on your the fears too much. Because like I was telling you, I was always kind of like, will I be able to? And honestly, I think that there's a quote, I want to say maybe it's by Morgan Freeman,
Mm-hmm.
but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But it was like, the people that keep running are the ones that win the race. It's when you stop and sit down, you'll get trampled, you
Yeah.
know? So I think just like kind of that mentality to like keep moving, keep going. And then I also like the idea, I've been thinking about this one a lot, about flowers and how a flower never looks at how how the other flower blooms. It just blooms itself, you know, like it just does
Yeah.
its thing. And so that's kind of the same thing, like not leaning into those fears and doubts, but just like letting your spirit and your soul shine, without the like fear of comparing yourself to others. So
No, I love that. I think it's like perfect, because it's like the left and the right mentality of like, and that's so funny, because that's like the third or fourth time I've heard that in through somebody in my life, is like the best artists and the most successful people, I feel like, are the ones that, you know, don't look to the left or the right, and aren't like all of a sudden terrified that they aren't like the people to the right or the left of them, that they have to trust their own instincts and trust what they're doing, like you said so beautifully. the flower just blooms. It just does it, and it's not looking like the flower to the left or looking to the flower to the right. It's just blooming, and it's its own beautiful flower.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
I love that, and
Yeah.
it's
And knowing that like there can be many beautiful flowers. I
mm,
think that was another thing that like, because the world is so competitive, and like especially in the US, I think we like focus on that competition aspect.
absolutely.
Uh, but I think for art, especially to really blossom and grow, it's like, you and there can be many, and there can be like each one can be so special and so unique, so not feeling like you have to be V1 or like, I
Yeah.
think
For
this
well,
like,
and I think too, it's like those are the kind of people where when you have people that are constantly trying to be the next thing or trying to compare themselves to what's popular now, there's no growth. And so like art is like the perfect example because art evolves. And so one thing that is, everybody starts to gravitate towards, if we only have that thing, it's not going to be exciting anymore. So then you have other people that are becoming original ideas. And yes, some people might think that's the craziest thing ever. It's like, oh, you're writing that kind of song, or you're doing that kind of dance, or you're painting that kind of picture. That's so weird. That's not like anything else. And it's like those are the things that start new ideas, new influences, new inspiration. So it has a lot of like different connotations, and I think it's beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that. So where can people find you? I know Dance Theater Harlem, you can go to dancetheaterharlem.com for any information, but like, where can people find you online?
.org, but
Oh,
yes.
.org. Thank you. Everyone listening, dancetheaterofharlem.org. And where can everybody find you? Do you have any upcoming projects coming up? Anything like that?
Well, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook with Mademoiselle Donnell. That's my hashtag. Project-wise, we're working with DTH. We're doing a thing with Dartmouth to create a new work that we're trying to work through virtually. So that should be coming up. And then yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to like have some more projects for myself, but
Right.
we'll see. We'll just have to stay tuned for more projects.
Everybody stay tuned. She's amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lindsey, again, for everything, for talking, for giving me so many beautiful stories and insights and inspirations. I'm excited to have everyone get to listen to this and be inspired by you. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. This is great. Great to see you.
Be safe. And I can't wait to get to New York because I'm going to come and visit and check out the whatever ballet you're doing.
Yes.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right. Bye.